Hey, everybody, welcome to the 6-5 podcast. I'm your host today, Daniel Newman, joined by my always esteemed and superstar co-host, Mr. Patrick Moorhead of Moor Insights and Strategy. Excited to be doing my first broadcast in the driver's seat from sunny, beautiful Austin, Texas. I now call home. I can't believe it. I'm a Texan. Time to get some shit kickers in a 10-gallon hat, buddy. It is my time. And by the way, I just put an advisory on this podcast. I did it in the first 37 seconds. So go me. Mr. Moorhead, big week in tech. We got acquisitions, we've got earnings, we've got new construction, new buildings, and new breakthroughs. And we are going to talk about all of them here. But first and foremost, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm a lot better that you're now in Texas. And by the way, Texas, our cities have different personalities, and I think the shit kickers and 10-gallon hats are probably better for Dallas and maybe San Antonio. But you won't get kicked out of any restaurant in Austin, right? We try to be this high-tech music, blah 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 type of city. But anyways, I'd love to see you in a hat.
You know what? This head was made for wearing a hat, and that's just unfortunately going to be my future. But yeah, you're right. Spending a little time downtown this week, I would say a pair of flip-flops, Patagonia, and shorts or pants that show all of my ankles fits in this kind of Silicon Valley-esque environment that we live. Although I will say the tax climate is much better, but that's a debate for another time and another day. We will talk about that more in thy future. So for everybody out there, if this is your first time checking out the show, the 6-5 is all about deep analysis, a little bit of news, just enough to give you the context. But in the show, we'll cover 6 topics, approximately 5 minutes each. We are very unsuccessful in managing that, but no one is taking points against us when we go long. And when we do go long, it's usually because the analysis is good. Now, quick disclaimer, we know this show is for information and entertainment purposes only. So while we will be talking about publicly traded companies and earnings of these companies, please do not take anything that Mr. Moorhead or myself says as financial advice. All right. Ready to rock and roll, Pat?
Let's dive in here. We have some incredible topics, as you can see here, but let's dive in. Topic number 1, Zoom is acquiring Five9. Just when you thought Zoom was going to be building everything in-house, they go off and do a pretty big acquisition.
Yeah, Pat, I'm going to go ahead and introduce that one again because I'm the host on the show. I'm just kidding. But
oh, that's right.
You are on fire, man. You know what I love about you is I know if I was on stage holding the microphone and your favorite song came on, you would take the mic right out of my hand and you would just rock and roll.
Possibly.
All is good, brother. Like I said, as long as we get what we need to say out there, it doesn't really matter who's driving. I'll ride or drive. What do they say? Anytime. All right. So yeah, over the weekend, Pat, Sunday night, I was just settling into my hotel room because I'm living out of a suitcase while I figure out my situation for the next few weeks. But that didn't stop me from getting the news. Breaking news came across both of our desks that Zoom had struck a deal to buy cloud software provider and cloud contact center leader Five9 in a transaction that was valued at almost $15 billion. Big deal, Pat. First and foremost, I just want to call out in a Business Insider, expose that went out several weeks ago, looking at companies Zoom might acquire. I believe both of us, ironically, without any coordination, put Five9 out there into the ethers as a company that Zoom could possibly acquire. And guess what? I love it when there's documentation of us getting it right. But let's talk about why this is happening. First of all, Zoom over the pandemic had an exponential growth, 300+% growth in multiple quarters. Its stock price went through the roof, but a lot of people started to wonder what is next for Zoom. It is a video platform for communication. Companies use it for point-to-point and small group meetings very successfully. What else? Over the past several months, you've seen webinars become a bigger part of the company. You've also seen digital events become part of the company's platform, and it's something they're going to be putting more and more energy into as we go more hybrid. But still, not enough. Lots of video platforms out there. And if you've listened to CEOs like Satya Nadella and Mark Benioff talk about their future, well, their future is focused on this operating system for business. It's a full vertical integration stack and horizontal. It's taking cloud to core to collaboration and all the way across, verticals, integrations into ERP, CRMs, and of course, the collab platform acts as the center of the knowledge worker, and in some case, frontline workers' existence. Well, Zoom didn't have that, doesn't have those features. It has a chat, but hasn't been pervasively picked up in any enterprise. It really has been a point-to-point solution. Well, Five9 breaks that free, and Eric Yuan, CEO, has talked a lot about the platform, a lot about making the platform more extensible. Contact center is very logical. It actually puts Five9 on a plane to have a fairly consistent product subset as Cisco in the WebEx platform. You've got a chat, you've got video, you've got messaging, you've got now contact center. Now Cisco is more comprehensive, made more acquisitions, has a little bit more width, but both of these two companies in the collaboration space right now do not have that full productivity integration and CRM integration that is what Salesforce and Microsoft are going for. So I'm going to just say one more thing. I'm going to pass the baton so you can have at least a little oxygen left, because I'm sure there's a lot of different things here to cover. The deal size represents, I believe I looked at it, it was aggressive. It was like 34 times revenue, and the revenue was growing about 30-something%. This is the same size deal as the Tableau deal, that Salesforce, that a lot of people thought was very large. In my mind, it's something that Zoom's clearly saw synergistic, clearly saw the $435 million in revenue that was created last year by Roland Trollope and the team as a great opportunity to extend the platform and really show their intent to be more than just a video company.
Yeah, good analysis, Daniel. And whether it's Cisco, whether it's 8x8, whether it's Mitel, Genesis, combining, probably call it personal communications, employee communications, and call center communications is kind of the thing to do now, right? Not only is the back-end technology very similar, but because of remote work, the requirement to better manage and understand how your employees are interacting is becoming a lot more important. And if I can apply AI or ML to kind of what my employees are discussing or chatting about or talking about, that same type of ML, and apply it to customers, right, to understand, hey, when they're getting aggravated, or maybe they're looking for something and pull up information. This is the future of this industry. I mentioned this when I mistakenly turned into the host, but I was surprised that they didn't build it on their own, because the company is a very do-it-yourself, and I think they took advantage of their massive valuation increase from pre-COVID to where it is right now. And sure, it has lowered a little bit since the peak, but they did the right funding, and this is the right thing to do because they could do it.
Yeah, definitely speeding up growth, Pat. And, I think a lot of integration getting tied closer to that data, that customer experience. Overall, I like it. All right, keep moving, Pat. Interesting news broke last week. It was all about Intel potentially buying GlobalFoundries. This week, though, GlobalFoundries actually on its own, without any reference to what's going on at Intel, made some big announcements about some expansion of its fabs and did a big rebranding.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with GlobalFoundries, you should be, because they are a force in the foundry marketplace for semiconductors, and they do it in the area that Intel doesn't do it in, namely, they do it for 5G RF, IoT, automotive, and focus on silicon photonics. And the reason that those are the focus areas is because those require special types of technologies that go into it, different types of materials that go into it, as opposed to kind of bleeding edge geometry improvements that get you to the lowest nanometer node, like 3, 5, or 7. And unbeknownst to most people, our biggest issue with being able to ship more products out the door isn't leading edge. It's more lagging edge. It's USB controllers. It's security chips that go into devices. It's chips that go into displays as we've moved from desktop to going more mobile. So with that basis here, GlobalFoundries, who is planning on going IPO in the next 18 months, did get, there was a rumor about Intel buying them. I totally get it for Intel. Regulatory wise, it would never happen. It would just never happen. But what they did announce is they made 3 announcements. And this was broadcasting from their Malta establishment in New York. Good old Chuck Schumer was there to lend support. But announcement number 1 was they were going to expand the current Malta facility by $1 billion of investment. Essentially, it's putting equipment in there. They already have a shell there in Fab 8. This is dumping equipment in. The second announcement was a brand new fab, and they didn't give the number of wafers. They didn't give the investment because, quite frankly, they're still getting the investment. Okay, and it totally makes sense. But what they did talk about is that it would provide, 1,000 new jobs, and I did think that was pretty cool. And if I back into that, please don't hold me into that. I think we're looking probably at a $4 to $5 billion brand new fab, very similar to what they ponied up for in Singapore. So that was announcement number 2. Is a huge one. They had the Secretary of Commerce there on hand as well. The final was a brand revamp, not a complete thing, but if you remember, GlobalFoundries was all cap. It's like GlobalFoundries, like it's screaming at you. The new one is Big G Global, Big F Foundries, and some iconography that looks suspiciously like a wafer behind it with maybe a G or an F. My expectation is that ultimately they're going to get rid of GlobalFoundries and just go with GF. That's where I think that this is headed. Am I boring you, Daniel? Are you yawning? You go get some coffee. Come on, baby. Come on. No, but net, I think it's going to go to GF ultimately, and we can get on with her. A lot of people ask me, why didn't they just change the complete name? I hate the word global. Well, you know what? GlobalFoundry is more important now than ever. See, GlobalFoundries can be happy with the West, and they can be happy. They can be friends with China because they have the most diversified foundry establishments across the world. Singapore, Germany, United States, and even more. Okay, there we're at.
That wasn't boring. That is the byproduct of sleeping about 4 hours a night for the last 8 days while I've been in the process of relocating my entire life and still potting because I never want to miss the opportunity to talk to our great community. So bear with me, folks. Look, I'm not going to add much there because Pat, you had a lot to say. We talked extensively about GlobalFoundries when we talked about the Intel deal. You're right, probably not much of a possibility, although I could see how Intel would love to see that deal happen so that they can then put pressure on regulators to not allow a different deal that's going on out there to happen concurrently. Now, last thought on GlobalFoundries as a whole is, Intel's remarks, had some remarks about the chip shortage being its most acute here in the second half of 2021 as part of its earnings today. And to me, that just means there's a multi-year opportunity on the lagging and leading edge to create and to fulfill those gaps in production in the marketplace, and GlobalFoundries is very well positioned. And that's probably another reason why an IPO would be very friendly, because of all the attention right now that the market is getting for labs that can actually produce volumes of chips to fill all of these supply chain woes. Speaking of Intel, all right, let's roar forward here. We have Intel Q2 earnings on the rise here. Big day for Intel. The company came in well above its guidance, $18.5 billion against a guidance number that came in, Pat, I believe it was like 17.8. Now, again, all the numbers I'm giving you are non-GAAP. So don't call me out by using GAAP numbers and telling me I'm wrong. I do not appreciate that. The company, as a whole, Pat, there's a lot of areas to cover here. Let's just say some very strong beats across its BUs, some not so great numbers across its BUs. Client computing did very well. IoT did very well. Mobileye did fantastic, record-breaking. The PC platform within client did extraordinarily well. Another record-breaking quarter, 33% growth. I think it was over 1 million units being shipped a day, albeit at a lower ASP. Pat, I'll let you talk about that here in a little bit. Network kind of had a beat down this quarter, which will probably bring some question marks around 5G, because we'd expect with 5G being deployed globally that the Network Solutions Group should be doing very well, although those kinds of businesses can be lumpy, and China has been very aggressive in those deals. So that's going to be something to watch as well. Pat, I think the demise of Intel has been greatly overstated. I think, I got some really interesting tweets when I put out my commentary about just how good this quarter was. Of course, there's the naysayers, but there's also the Intel backers. The M1 was supposed to erode Intel's business, and Intel's PC business is absolutely roaring. DCG, a lot of folks that are going to scrutinize something in the business probably will pick DCG to scrutinize. I just happen to point this out. Last year, same quarter, Intel had an incredible blowout result, actually the first 2 quarters of last year. So the fact that they were only about 9% off the pace actually indicates a pretty good quarter for DCG. Pat, because all in all, last year's numbers were tremendous, and now their guidance is going to show a strength in the next 2 quarters. Well, that was because the final 2 quarters of last year were not very good. So next 2 quarters, they're going to come in with great numbers, and everybody's going to be cheering, and you're going to have to realize it's a lumpy business. It's not flat. There are some big volumes. You've got buyers, but the company did point out its next generation of Xeon has done extremely well. It's getting wins from all the big cloud players, or most of them, Alibaba, Baidu, Microsoft, Oracle, all using Intel's 3rd generation Xeon Scalable. They did have a miss this quarter with Sapphire Rapids. It fell out slightly. We've talked about that, so we're not going to beat on that too much. But the one thing I will say, Pat, and then I want to turn it back to you, because again, I just want to make sure you have a chance to say something on these topics, buddy. Is that the company overall is in a good position. It's got a lot of headwinds. I mentioned coming into this particular segment that the company has said more or less that the chip shortage is not over. It's not even close to over. We'd heard some CEOs earlier in the year say later this year. Now we're hearing it could be 1 or 2 years into the future before. That's not entirely because of a supply issue either. There's a big demand issue. There's a big lagging issue, which is what we've been talking about with GlobalFoundries, because none of these systems are just based on these leading edge nodes that are coming out from the companies. I think Intel has some chasing to do in areas like AI and graphics, and I'm interested in hearing how that continues to evolve. But listen, Pat, 10 quarters in a row, Intel has beaten on the top and beaten on the bottom. Bob Swan didn't get any love. Pat Gelsinger getting a little more love, but still not getting much love. This is the beginning of a very good trend under Pat Gelsinger. Execution's key. I remain and I continue to believe it's key, but there's an opportunity with a long lag in the supply chain. Intel, if they can execute on some of this manufacturing madness and the opportunities that are out there, could be in really good shape coming out of the supply chain woes.
Wow. That was good stuff. So here's the thing. I can pick apart every division and go in and do that. But on the whole, they had a great Q2. I mean, They beat on revenue by $700 million compared to their guide. Gross margin was up 2 basis points. EPS was up 23% over guide, and they increased their forecast. The one thing that is biting them right now is margins, and the reason why I'm not concerned about the margins in the second half, given even the increase in revenue, first of all, you got some supply chain challenges out there, and like you indicated, it's downstream stuff. It's USB controllers. It's circuitry for flat panel displays. But also, and this is very important, DCG took the burden of the 10 nanometer startup costs. And what's happening right now in the gross margin is the 7 nanometer startup, in addition to supply chain and a lot more 10 nanometer. Is dragging things down, and I think there are some competitive things going on as well out there, given AMD. ASPs are down in the client group, even though the revenue was up significantly, and we're in a supply constrained environment because Intel is really attacking the lower ASP product lines with Chromebooks and Core i3 and stuff like that with their 10 nanometer silicon. So it requires a little bit of analysis. I think we could see a reversal tomorrow morning. But listen, I'm not an equities expert. I'm an industry analyst, but I am not concerned about Intel.
Yeah, not much to be concerned about, my friend. Not much to be concerned about. All right, maybe a few things, but we'll keep talking about those things. That's the beauty. There's always challenge, always innovation, always competition. And Pat, that's what we do here on the 6-5. We talk about these things. Let's kick it over to another company that had earnings, had a big one. Biggest earnings growth, I believe it was in 3 years, Pat, IBM.
Yeah, so that was really the headline. Right now, was it overall, big 25%, like FANG or something like that? No, it wasn't. But you have to start there before you can get in a rocket ship. And I'm going to hit some of the highlights that I thought were important to hit. And the first was CNCS Cloud, 25%. Improvement. And I think that's probably one of the better comparisons to, let's say, an AWS cloud or a Google cloud or an Azure cloud. There was GBS cloud that was 30%. Essentially what that is, all the professional services that go around that. Systems, IBM Z15 versus Z14, 100% increase, albeit overall systems was down, which I attribute primarily to the state of the roadmap. You've got new platforms that are in the pipeline. Free cash flow, $11 billion on an LTM basis. But finally, right, the big nut was Red Hat. Red Hat at 20% growth year over year. They said OpenShift revenue was up 3x from before the revenue and have 3,200 IBM clients on a hybrid cloud platform, up 4x since acquisition closed, with a $5.2 billion backlog. So net, it's hard to say. It would be hard for anybody to come up and say that Red Hat isn't working out for them so far. Do I want double-digit growth top line for the entire company? Yeah, I do, but that's just not the company that IBM is. So, you've got to look at, to me, what are the growth areas in the marketplace and how is IBM performing in those? And that's, it's AI and it's cloud. And, IBM is doing respectable double-digit growth in cloud. AI, not so much. But I think, we're going to have to see what IBM does with AI in the future.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here. It was a good quarter for IBM. And here's the thing. They're on the precipice of a very big divestiture of the global technology service business, also known as Kyndryl, which has been proverbially speaking, a boat anchor on the company, has not been showing much growth. It's heavy. It's very it's got cost intensive. It's an important part of the business, but it's been a business that doesn't really mesh very effectively with the growth areas that Arvind Krishna and the leadership team at IBM are focused on. They're all in on hybrid cloud. And that's important to point out the difference there, because if you look at public cloud growth, you look at the battles between AWS, Google, Microsoft and Azure, and even Oracle, IBM is not really coming out saying we want to be the public cloud company, but they're building solutions with Red Hat, with satellites that are very focused on being able to win and participate in ecosystems that may have AWS, that may have Azure or Google or any of these others. The results, though, I believe this quarter are going to be looked at as positive, but I think the race really starts for Arvind and team when that divestiture is complete. As you suggested, Pat, in the areas like cloud and cognitive services, when you actually break in the service in cloud and growth, and you're seeing 29% growth, or you're seeing 35% in global business services, this is the potential of the company. This is the potential of growth if you focus on the areas where they have the right products, the right mix, and have been putting the acute attention over the past few years. That's where the attention has been spent. That is where growth is coming. And of course, you've got down the pike, you've got things like IBM Quantum, which you can count on being an important long-term growth engine for the company. As you said, I think AI, IBM was so early with Watson. I really feel like it might have been a little bit of a missed opportunity for a more rapid growth trajectory for the company, but it has built a really strong reputation in that space. And I do hope there's a way that the company can revive and grow that. And my last ask is that I do hope the company can continue to provide greater and greater transparency, taking out any ambiguity in the cloud numbers. Because when you come out and you say you're a cloud company, you want your cloud growth to always be double digit. And when you boiled it up into that big cloud number, it wasn't 10% plus. And if the whole company is not growing 10%, I can live with that. But if cloud isn't growing 10%, I'm going to struggle with it. And I guarantee you the folks on Wall Street and the investors and the retail and funds are going to say, whoa, why are they not growing faster in cloud? So that's something to watch. All right, buddy, we got to keep moving along on this show. Another big one, Amazon, Alexa Live 2021. And this time it was turned its attention to the developer. So, they kind of do two iterations of it. They have the Alexa Live where they launch all the gizmos and gadgets, things that fly around your house and take videos and listen and provide AI and multi-turn conversations. And this one, though, was all about skills, future of work, building that platform for developers to get paid for all of the intelligent things they're building to be done on these millions and millions of Alexas around the world, Pat.
I appreciate you punting that over to me. So yeah, listen, here's the funny part. You don't hear as much about Alexa as, let's say, you did a year and a half or 2 years ago when it was first out. And do you know why that is? That's because people are actually using it, right? It's become the fabric of what we do. And I know the word fabric, sounds like a marketing word, and it kind of is, but it is in our life. And whether it's even asking the time, or what's my calendar, or set an alert, like everybody is using it for that. But what I was really surprised about was how many skills are being used out there, and how many interactions that are out there. And it's crazy. It's like, it's absolutely skyrocketing. And Amazon strategically described it as what they're going at. They want to make Alexa ambient. And listen, I've been talking about ambient computing for 20 years. We see it in science fiction all the way, Space Odyssey, where HAL, I know that's probably a bad example, but, it's a negative example of where you can essentially ask HAL anything, and it does it, and hopefully it doesn't lock you out of the spacecraft. But With that said, what Amazon did is they added about 27 new features to developers to make Alexa more ubiquitous, make Alexa more multimodal, and make Alexa just smarter. And quite frankly, you could read my Forbes article where I go into feature by feature. But I don't think that's most valuable here. I think what's most valuable strategically is them looking at this as a ubiquitous service, which strategically is 100% the right way to go, and also that usage of Alexa is skyrocketing along with the partner opportunities. One of the things that's crazy is this B2B opportunity that they have, which is crazy. And there were hotels, there were banks that are able to. It's almost a physical embodiment of chatbots, right? It's a device that can do things for customers, and whether that's give me a reservation, or I've seen one of these in one of my hotel rooms where you can ask it to hey, can you please send me a toothbrush? Or can you please turn off the lights inside of the room? And that really is the future of where this is headed.
Yeah, that's some great analysis, Pat. I had some time to tune in between unpacking boxes. I always love the Gizmo Gadget show. The developer stuff is super interesting because this is really what brings everything to life. A lot of people hear about developer platforms for iOS. You hear about developer platforms for Android. Well, all this headless commerce and all these applications that are going to allow us to do more with these Alexas that we've deployed. And again, oftentimes you have one phone, you might have 8 Alexas, 10 Alexas, depending on the size of your home, your house, your office. And this thing has been very successful. Tens of millions are being deployed right now. I think on the yearly, I think there's like 165 million of them out there. I would have to double check that number, so don't hold me accountable to it, but it is quite a few. I boiled this down to 3 things of the 50 plus various announcements. One, it was all about improving customer and user experience. Customer and user experience. Many features were designed to just make the experience of using Alexa better. 2, drive growth with easier customer acquisition, retention, and monetization. So, you got to make this lucrative and attractive to the developer community. You want developers to come play in the sandbox. They have to have a reward. There are things like paid skills, which were added, and shopping actions, gave developers more opportunities to monetize what they're building. And then finally, simplify development. We hear all about things like low code, no code. We need to make it easier so that developers can build faster, give them more plug and play, give them resources, design guides, entities, and even A/B testing that can be done right in the platform. All of these things were there. So overall, like I said, a great event. I am looking forward to seeing the next group of gadgets, but all good stuff here. All right, let's go to the final. We talked about IBM Quantum. Let's talk about Honeywell Quantum. Pat, this is something we talk about quite a bit on the show. Making quantum cool again, making quantum cool, and making Honeywell cool. I mean, Honeywell is a really interesting company. We've talked a lot about the fact that more and more becoming a tech company. At our 6.5 Summit, we had the CEO, Darius Adamczyk, join us. We also had Tony Utley, CEO of Honeywell Quantum, join us. And we had a special guest, Ilyas Khan of Cambridge Quantum Computing, which ended up announcing right around the time of our summit. Yep. Maybe it was because of our summit, but they happened to announce a new joint venture, 55% owned by Honeywell, that would be Honeywell Quantum Systems and CQC together. Well, this announcement included 3 breakthroughs that for the first time, the 2 companies were going to co-announce. So despite the fact that this deal is not completely, been announced and formalized yet, that'll happen later in the year, this announcement did put some breakthroughs of the companies on the map. So let's talk about what they are. The first, Pat, remember when we were talking in quantum volumes of like under 50 when we first started talking to Honeywell? It was just a few qubits. Well, they were able to achieve quantum volume of 1,024, doubling its record from only a quarter ago. So you see how much faster this is getting. And, with ion trapping, as we know, these things tend to have more longevity because of the way these qubits are managed in the ion trapping platform versus superconducting, which has its own value. But in this particular case, this was a big breakthrough. They moved very quickly in just a couple of years. The second was something called real-time error correction. Well, the state of the qubit has to remain in a consistent state so they can actually handle solving the problems that you're applying the quantum computer to solve. Well, if the errors aren't corrected in real time, the outcomes will not be good. So the ability for this system to actually correct itself in real time is a big breakthrough, and it's something that Honeywell has been talking about for a long time, but has been now able to demonstrate. And then the third was an announcement from CQC. And CQC, really, if you don't understand, Honeywell builds the physical, the hardware, the machines. CQC's always been a partner. They build the software. So you think about as we move things from hardware to software, we move to software defined, we move towards containers, and we move to the DPUs, all the things we talk about regularly on these shows. This is kind of the same thing. We're starting to apply software, whether that's simulation, whether that's putting a simulation into Azure or using Amazon Bracket to do quantum simulation from a computer using an interface. It's the software that's going to bring this stuff to life. Well, CQC has been working on an algorithm that's going to enable these quantum machines to be more efficient, effectively doing bigger and larger and more complex calculations using fewer qubits. And so it announced that it's been able to achieve this. It's got this new algorithm, and this is going to be really important for quantum going forward. I'll leave this thought here. The future of quantum isn't really so much just about these machines and their ability to maintain an error-free or low error state. These machines are something else. They're very wild. If you ever see one, you'll know what I mean. You check the picture of the blog post that Pat and I put up about these. It doesn't look like a computer in any way that you think, but it's really going to be a marriage between classical computing and quantum computing. And it's going to be software that you and I and everyone else on the planet can manipulate the way we do our CRM, our ERP, our productivity, our collaboration, our web experiences, and our apps, that are going to use the power of the quantum computing to solve problems that our classical computers either can't solve quickly or can't solve at all. That's when it gets done. Don't underestimate the value of software when you're talking about the future of quantum.
Wow. Daniel, you just sound like a quantum computing expert or something.
Thanks, buddy. I practiced that all night.
I know. We're gonna have to get a propeller for you. No, see, I liked this trifecta of announcements because it hit on nearly everything that's important. So quantum volume, which is raw performance with good qubits, the error correction that is required over time because you don't have perfect qubits that last like the whole time, right? And an algorithm which increases efficiency. So I like the trifecta, and even though the deal is not closed yet, the JV, the new company doesn't even have a new name, right? But we have CQC and Honeywell working together on announcements. Now, they were always working together before, but now it's going to be more like a marriage as opposed to dating. So I like the way it was rolled out. It hit the three elements that make the quantum world go around. And I don't know about you, Daniel, but I'm honored to be part of this as we go in the future. Because if you look at the different eras of computing, I mean, this is you and I were not around when mainframes first came out, but they're still here. We were here for client server and then cloud computing and mobility. But this is different, right? This is going to reset everything. I'm convinced, even though it is the third or fourth try for quantum computers. It took AI and machine learning 3 or 4 rotations to get to be real as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I still remember not that long ago meeting a person who got a PhD in artificial intelligence in the 1980s. So for all the people out there that think that it's a brand new thing and it's something of the 2010s and 20s, it is not, nor is quantum. Sometimes it isn't about being first, it's about getting it right. And sometimes it is about being first. And that's why we're here, to tell you when it's about being first and when it's about being right. Anyway, That's it, buddy. That's our show. That's everything. We hit it. We hit the Zoom, the 5.9, GlobalFoundries, Intel, IBM, Honeywell, Amazon. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Pat, nicely done.
Yeah, good to see you. We normally try to get this in on Friday, but I screwed that up because I'm taking a flight out in the morning. So
no worries about it whatsoever. I will be unpacking, hopefully moving into my temporary housing, and I will finally be sleeping in a bed that I do not have to share with children and a dog. It has been crazy here, but overall, all good. Welcome to Texas. And you saw that in episode 85 if you were there. But for this show, for episode 86, it's time to say goodbye. So everyone out there, hit that subscribe button. Join us. Be part of our family. Check out all our episodes. Watch us on the YouTube. Get us on Spotify. Hit us up on Apple. Be a subscriber. Share it with your friends. If you don't like what you heard, at Patrick Moorhead. And if you like it, at Daniel Newman UV. That's the way we do it. When he hosts, he sends you my way, and I'll send you his way. But for now, we got to go. We'll see you later. Bye now.